The 745th edition of the MMA Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with promo code MMASGPN to get a 50% deposit bonus of up to $1,000. And we're also brought to you by Rhythm, the leader in data-driven picks and props. Get your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM.
Heidi ho, degenerinos, and here we are back again. The MMA Gambling Podcast and the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, episode 745 goes out to LP, one of our newish friends in the Discord from Ireland, I believe. So we are worldwide. So this goes out to LP and basically to all our friends in the Discord. I'm one of your hosts. The Canadian Capitalist is still my name. I would be Jeff Fox, and we have a historical event to cover for you today, as the title suggests. It's LFA 200. The 200th event for the top regional promotion in North America, at the very least. There's some big ones rising in Europe and Japan. But, in terms of a UFC feeder promotion, this is the biggest one around, and they're doing the 200th event this weekend at the Mystic Lake Casino, which we have discussed many times on the podcast in the past, in Prior Lake, Minnesota. So it's such a big event. We're breaking it down into 2 episodes today, but we're calling it prelims, but it's a combo of prelims and the last couple main card fights. Then tomorrow we will do the top 5 fights, which include 3 unification bouts, title unification bouts to top the card. It's almost like LFA planned this. Who's to say? My co-host may have something to say about that. That would be the man on the left, aka Daniel Gumby Vreeland. Hello.
You know, I think that the headliner they sort of planned, although that fight was supposed to happen in November, I want to say, and got rebooked. The other 2, the champs were only accompanied by interims because of their runs to Contender Series. So
right.
As much as I would love to say that they sort of plan this, because sometimes they do. Sometimes they have like an American champion who's not going to fly to Brazil for a fight, so they do a Brazilian interim, and then they got to unify that. Like sometimes they do that, but in this one, it just seems like, you know, a couple of people's bad luck, being the people who didn't get their contracts on Contender Series, and you know, bad luck of having that fight from November pushed back, loaded this LFA 200 card up, and it is a sick one.
It's the best card they put on?
Of all time. Yeah, I mean, like, there's a handful of fighters we're going to talk about today on the prelims who we usually talk about on the main card episodes. Like, they're ones... You know, we've talked about Guzzi Hines before. We've talked about Steven Asplund or Kelton Sneve, or, you know, like we've talked about Santos Verdinez too. So like we've talked about all these people on main event versions of this podcast. So to get them all on the prelims is kind of crazy.
So many great names too that you just mentioned. They're gonna be just a handful, and they're all some of my very favorite names.
Do you think if I said that list of names just to a random group of people, they'd be like, he is making up 92% of those?
Yeah, exactly. They had no idea what you're doing. They wouldn't know it was MMA, and then secondly, they wouldn't think they're real people. So just like they wouldn't think that a banana could play baseball, but they can. Look at Gumby's hat. People on YouTube know what I'm talking about, and more importantly, the people in the Discord have been chomping for it. The odds just dropped right before we went to air, at least for most of the fights, right?
Yeah. There's like 3 of them. I think actually at least half the ones we're doing
the first
on this
today,
episode
right?
are still without odds.
Okay, good. Yeah, I was going to ask you. So the first 3 today, we don't have odds for, right? Because I couldn't find odds for those, but the rest I have odds for. Does that sound right?
That sounds right.
Ooh. Cool. Okay, of the 200 LFA events, how many have you watched?
Oh, God.
Can you estimate?
Probably, I'll say 65, 75, somewhere in that range. I'd say I watched, you know, maybe a third. Sometimes when they get in the way of like another promotion or, you know, my life, sometimes I've missed them. I've been at, I think, half a dozen of these.
Nice.
And I got plans to go to another one in the very near future. So,
good. We'll be covering it. I'm sure we'll be covering it.
There's one in Connecticut coming up, which is kind of fun. They're coming to Connecticut for the first time in a really long time.
Yeah, so the first event they did, LFA 1, Peterson versus Higo, January 13th, 2017. I remember the good old days before LFA.
When it was Legacy and RFA.
And RFA, yeah, and they combined. So Charles Williams beat Austin Lingo in the main event of the very first event. So despite the event being called Peterson versus Higo.
That might have been a post. That might have been a post limb.
Oh, right. That was post. So sorry. Yeah. The main event, Leandro Higo, who went on to the UFC, beat Steven Peterson, who went on to the UFC as well. So, yeah, we had Austin Lingo, UFC, Rashad Coulter went to the UFC, Damon Jackson, just to give you a taste of Cynthia Calvillo, Montana De La Rosa. Yeah, it is the premier feeder league to the UFC. All those people were just on the first fight card. Victor Altamirano, Elijah Johns. Elijah Johns was on number 1. Did you know that?
He's the only fighter to have fought in LFA every single year they've been LFA.
Oh, really? Huh. I don't know if that's something you want to have happen. You want to kind of progress, right? More than likely.
Yeah. It's like
it's like holding AAA records in baseball. Maybe not the records that you want, but hey, better than nothing. Better than fighting in bar rooms like they used to in the old days. All right, before we give you some picks, because that's what you're here for, right? You're here for the picks. I'm here to tell. What am I telling people about? The app, I believe, right? Remember, download our app if you have not already. Our app has everything you want. It's got the odds. It's got our giveaways. It's got our articles. It's got our podcast. It's got it all. So check that out. And also, we got a promo going on right now, a store promo in honor of the big game. Think they mean Super Bowl because the Grey Cup's over. From now until February 9th, 15% off everything in the SGPN merch store with the promo code Big Game, all one word. That'll be sportsgamblingpockets.com/store. Promo code Big Game. You can get the shirt I'm wearing right now, even though it's faded now. You can get my hat. You can get, there's a whole bunch of MMA Gambling Podcast gear. Even some of the silly lines that we say are on shirts now. So check it all out, sportsgamblingpockets.com/store. Big Game is your code. All right. Let's go into LFA 200. Kicking things off with a prelim bout. And it is one of the fun names at 155. Kelton Sneve, the Canadian, versus Steve Collins, the American. 3 5-minute rounds, 155. Collins, Scuba Steve. So he's even got a good name. He's
do you get that reference, Mr. I don't watch movies?
No, I know people. You people always talk about Scuba Steve and stuff.
That's such a bummer.
What movies are from?
Big Daddy.
Oh, I've seen Big Daddy. I don't remember.
Scuba Steve. Scuba Steve. It's the little action figure the little boy has.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. I've only seen it once, and that was when it came out, I think. So, yeah.
Man, that's a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. Scuba Steve Collins is 3-0 with 1 knockout. He's 1-0 in LFA, 2 years younger than Sneve. Sneve's the Conqueror with a K. Apparently, that's how we spell it in Canada, maybe. I don't know. 3-0, 1 knockout, 1 submission. I guess because his name's Kelton with a K. Anyhow, 2-0 in LFA, 2 inches taller than Collins. So 2-3-0 guys, LFA vets. Someone's losing their 0 here, Gumby. Who's going to lose the 0?
So first of all, I think, we don't have odds for this one. They might be up by the time you're listening to this. That the locals have just started dropping them down, and the offshores have started dropping them down. So I'm going to tell you, I think Kelton Sneve will wind up being a favorite here. I think, what did I write down originally? -175, -180. A couple of guys with good records, kind of fresh. You might see them pretty close together. And I'm going to jump out the gate here on an underdog. And I've actually liked Kelton Sneve for a while. I think I've picked him in just about every single one of his fights, either as a lightning round pick or an actual pick. And, I will just say, I do like his wrestling and grappling, but the thing it sort of lacks in terms of, his ability to win fights as he progresses through the levels here is just like a level of physicality. I think technically he's pretty proficient, but when he gets in there with a little bit stronger guys who are digging underhooks and doing the right things, I've seen signs of him struggling a little bit in the cage and maybe not getting what he needs in there. And if you look at Scuba Steve Collins, that dude, his takedown game, I'm actually going to rate much lower than Kelton Sneve. But he's really dominant in the clinch, the way he gets underhooks, the way he puts body control on his head position. I've seen a lot of his fights where he just wears on people in the clinch, throwing the knees to the thighs like people do. It's not a terribly fun style to watch, but at the same time, it is effective, especially when he's trying to basically nullify what Kelton Sneve likes to do, which is shoot a ton of takedowns and have a lot of top control. In addition to that, too, he's really quick on the feet. I think actually like a touch quicker than Kelton Sneve. You know, I would say his defense is worse, but again, that like physicality aspect of it all for Sneve, who I don't rate is terribly powerful. Like, it doesn't seem like his strikes have a lot of zip on him. He might be a slightly more technical striker, but I think the judges might favor Collins. You know, it might be one of those situations where Collins lands 54 punches and Sneve lands 75. And those punches from Collins are way more memorable. And then you add in like, you know, the advantageous clinch positions and watching Sneve whiff on a couple of takedowns. And like, I can see the judges leaning to Collins in that way. In you know, outside of maybe a submission for Sneve, I think Collins's hands probably have a more likely chance of ending this fight. So I'm going to go with what will probably wind up being a slight underdog in Scuba Steve Collins.
Whatever. We know the real handicap in here, Gumby. Steve's
Canadian.
He's against an American. All right, 36% are in on Collins. So hopefully you if you are in on him.
So yeah, so like a plus 150, plus 160-ish, probably. Yeah.
Cool. All right, very cool. Let's move on. I don't think there's any other Canadians.
Not until the main card.
Yeah, so no more fade opportunities, at least for the next few fights. All right, we are moving on up the card as we tend to do. The next fight is America versus America. Who will Gumby choose? Bantamweights. Jeremy Strobel Jr., Shad Walters, both the United States of America. Let's break it down. Did I tell you the weight class? It was 135, bantamweight. The relentless Shad Walters. 4-0, 2 knockouts, 2 submissions. He's 4-0 in LFA. Used to fight at 145. Strobel, JSJ, his initials, amazing nickname. 2-0. This is his debut in LFA. 5 years younger, 2 inches taller than Walters. So more undefeated prospects. Good to see.
Yeah. And I've got, because they're both undefeated again, I've got a similar line on here. I'm going to say Walters minus 170, 175, somewhere in that range. Do you know what Shad is short for without looking?
Not Rashad.
It's Shadland.
Shadland.
Shadland Walters.
Interested.
And I'm going to go with Shadland Walters.
Right.
You know, here's the thing. First of all, you know, if you watch Strobel fight, he's one of those guys who gets right into the clinch and right into takedowns over and over and over and over and over again. And I've seen him tire a little bit too, because that style is tough, especially for any regional level fighter. You know, you got to have pretty insane cardio for that. But also, like, I think it's a detriment to his offense in that he's perhaps just like a little bit predictable. Like, everybody knows what he wants to do. It's not like he's going to come out and like surprise you with the hands. And then on the other side for Walters, you know, like, first of all, his cardio is insane. I watched him get out wrestled really badly in the beginning of a fight one time for like 2 straight rounds. And he came back in the 3rd round and the other guy is dog tired and he is just the same exact person as he was. So, you know, I can see a similar thing happening here with Strobel, who likes the takedowns. I think he's maybe a touch worse at takedowns than people who have taken Walters down in the past. So like maybe he'll even struggle a little bit. And if he does, that cardio is going to kick. Now, in addition to that too, Walters, he's got his hands really low when he fights. Like, he invites shots. His defense maybe lacks a little bit, but with all that he gives up in that realm, it's in order to build power. And he does a really good job of doing that too. So, you know, both I could see him kind of taking over late in this fight, cardio-wise, possibly even getting some of his own wrestling going if Strobel tires down. And then also, I just think Walters' power can carry him in this fight. So whether it's early on or when Strobel starts to fade, I think Walters could handle him in both of those situations. So this one, as most likely a pretty slight favorite, Shadland Walters is my pick.
There's another name, another amazing name. See that there's this is the event for the names, and that's what I'm all about. All right, Gumby's about the winning picks. I'm about the funny names. All right, before we move on, we are both about DraftKings playoffs. We're talking about playoffs. You bet we are. Get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Scoring touchdowns is key to winning in the playoffs, and you can score big by betting on them at DraftKings, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Where do you place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score 6. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your picks. But obviously, it's not just the NFL. They got MMA. They'll have LFA if it's not up already. So check out all the lines there. And when you are there, if you're a new DraftKings customer and you bet $5, you can get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code SGP. That's code SGP for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5 only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Gumby, tell the people the fine print.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
There you go, dunking on Ontario again, Gumby. Classic Gumby move there.
Every time.
You got to fade Ontario, say we're void. All right. Here's another thing we're both in on. Stephen Asplund. He's fighting next.
Somebody in the Discord's got a Stephen Asplund profile pic right now.
Yeah.
Shout out to that.
Yes, I'll have to give that person a shout out next episode. I forgot. You're right. Stephen Asplund versus Hammer Morton. The names, Gumby. The names.
So good. It's like D1 college football.
It is true. Or every year when they do the NCAA hockey tournament, they always have amazing names that the people spread around the internet. Because hockey players have good names too. I'm assuming Hammer is not his real first name, or perhaps it is.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
He does look like he does look like a hammer. All right, this is a 3-5-minute round, 265. I think both these guys actually push the actually not Asplund anymore. He does not push right up to
I think he comes in like high 240s, low 250s.
Yeah. Good for him. All right. I'll tell you about Hammer Morton first. Hammer versus Concrete is I know who's going to win this, Gumby. Hammer versus Concrete. Morton's 3-1 with 3 submissions. He's been knocked out once. He owes his rounds. Damn it. This is his debut in LFA. He won his last fight via submission. 7 pounds heavier than Asplund based on their last or the most recent weigh-in info we had. Concrete Asplund, because was his job. Is it still his job, or has he given that up?
Yeah, I still think he does concrete work. It's his dad's business too, which his dad was like kind of I don't want to use this word disparagingly, but like a journeyman fighter.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and it'd been around for quite a while. So
yeah, it means you made a career out of it and you stuck around. So Concrete Jr. is 3-1 with 2 knockouts. He's been submitted 1 time. 2-1 in LFA. He lost his last fight via submission. I'm sure we were in on him, and he lost. 4 years younger than Morton, 4 inches taller. So who you got? Hammer versus Concrete, Gumby.
I'm gonna go with Asplund. I think he's gonna be a massive favorite here. My guess,
we have an odd, right?
Yeah, my guess is like negative 350, probably somewhere in that range.
That's not massive. We got a massive one coming up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's his teammate. That's the Goose.
I know. Yeah.
But like, Asplund kind of overlooked the wrestling aspect. In fact, you can hear him talk about it on this week's Top Turtle MMA podcast. He sort of overlooked the wrestling ability of Denzel Freeman and sort of the idea that Freeman would do that. But like, if you watch fights with Hammer Morton, like, Morton has gotten his grappling game going too, but it's just not like the level and the athleticism that you saw from somebody like Denzel Freeman. And in addition to that too, like, Hammer Morton won his last fight, and I went back and watched it. He 100% won his last fight because he got rocked within the first 35 seconds, and the dude who was fighting him punched himself out, beating the hell out of him. To the point where he was exhausted and just could be easily taken down and rear naked choked. And like, the thing I keep saying that makes Stephen Asplund just like such an intriguing prospect for me, and like, I really do believe that this dude is like Contender Series and UFC bound one day, is like, his cardio for heavyweight is insane. For a dude who used to weigh like 400 pounds, like, I can't believe his cardio is what it is, because like, in some of those past fights, I mean, he's throwing down in like an insane kickboxing match nonstop for 15 minutes, insane output, and he's not even tired. And so for me, that's like, first of all, a huge feather in any heavyweight's cap. And then on top of that, too, you have to imagine working in a room with Thomas Peterson, who's fighting next week in Saudi Arabia, and Guzzi, who we're going to talk about in the next fight. Like, his wrestling defense has to have gone up enough. And also, just in general, like, Hammer's way below where Freeman was. So I expect him to be like an absolute surgeon on the feet. I believe in my interview with Guzzi Hines, who I interviewed for last week's Top Turtle, he just talked about the fact that Asplund is a butcher on the feet. He's a guy who just absolutely chops people up. And Hammer Morton is not a guy who's particularly quick. So I just think Asplund is just going to wear him down in brutal fashion. I think you could see like a standing TKO kind of situation in this one, where he's just pouring it on, and maybe Morton's not going down, but he is eating all kinds of shots. So Give me Asplund here. I think he takes this one.
He's giving you very specifically how it's going to end too. So there you go. All right, we've been dancing around talking about. Let's actually talk
about the Goozy.
Alvin Goozy Hines versus Mark Currier, another heavyweight bout, 3 5-minute rounds. The Goose explained to you on your. I won't give it away. I did get to hear that episode. It showed up on Spotify Company, so we're good.
Thank God it finally did.
Yeah, last week's Top Turtle got to hear the Goose. There's no way you remember the. I won't give away where you got the nickname from, but there's no way you remember that show, right?
No, yeah, it's a reference to a TV show that's maybe before my time.
Well, it was before my time too, but I know it. But yes, okay. So that is he looks like a Goose anyhow, whether it's from a TV show or not. Let's break her down. Currier, the Wolf, is 3-4, 1 knockout, 2 submissions. So he's finished everyone. He's been submitted 3 times. He owes his rounds. Short notice debut in LFA. I want to call it the LFA, but LFA. 2-1 over his last 3, 2-3 over his last 5. He did lose his last bout. 0-1 in Bellator, 6 years younger than Hines, 3 inches taller, 2 inches of reach on him, plus 775. Maybe it's my tribute to my tribute to the Ohio State is why I'm saying the LFA. Plus 775. Goozy, aka the Goose, is 4-0, 1 knockout, 2 submissions. He's 3-0 in LFA. Minus 1,300. That's all I got for the Goose. Gumby has actually already told you a bunch about him. He trains with a bunch of other high-level heavyweights, which is important. I'm sure that it's hard to find high-level guys to train with at that size.
Yeah, and that is a great team. You know, the 3 of them, and I believe also Thomas Peterson's brother works in with them too. And then their striking coach is Caitlin Young. You remember Caitlin Young?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we've talked about her on this show many times.
Yeah, wild person to.
No, I'm thinking Shanna Young.
Yeah,
have you talked about Caitlin Young?
Yeah, we probably talked about Caitlin Young, and like she was like a Bellator darling, you know, at some point in time. So like probably, but yeah, so like it is a great team to begin with, which is part of why you see him at 1,300. But also Currier is taking this fight on short notice. This was supposed to be Matt Adams originally, and I believe I've said it on this show before, and I don't mean to continue to be mean about things, but he keeps dropping out of fights. I predicted before successfully that he would drop out of a fight. I didn't even get the chance to on this one, and he pulled out before it happened. So, you know, like I had Hines in that one as like a negative 500 favorite as well. I was predicting like 700 here. It's twice that high. I'm still picking him. If you watch Currier's most recent fight, the guy he's fighting grabs one of the weakest single legs I've ever seen and just dumps him anyway. And he's up against Goozy Hines, who is a wrestling machine. Like this dude, when he starts wrestling, like, and he's on top of you, like he's sort of like Thomas Peterson. You know, like it's funny. Asplund is kind of the odd man out in that trio. Is that like Peterson and Hines are both guys who, you know, grind and wrestle and get on top of you and wear you down and ground and pound and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, Asplund's the kickboxer of it all, but they complement each other well. I think Hines is just going to take down Mark Currier. He ought to do it 4 seconds into the fight, and then the ground and pound should come a minute and a half in. I'll say 90 seconds in, Goozy gets the finish here. Give me Alvin Hines at a slight negative 1,300 favorite.
Slight, very, very, very slight. All these guys they're local too, right? They're all Minnesota, so this is a home bout for them. Is that right? Yeah,
and Sneve, I think I think he trains right across the border and sometimes cross trains with them. If I'm not
Winnipeg
mistaken.
Or Manitoba, I mean.
Or
you mean a state?
I think he's right across the border in Canada, training there, and because I want to say I've seen pictures of him training at their joint. So I think, and we're gonna see even more local people on the main card.
Yeah, he's not a heavyweight, that's for sure.
No, he's a little guy.
Sneve. He's a little guy. All right, before we move on to the main event, we're already there. Underdog Pick'em has one of the biggest menus for all sports. Underdog is always making it easier to win with profit boosts and gimme pick'ems, NFL, college basketball, MMA, NBA, NASCAR, and more. And you now use specials and boosts on all your flex entries. Gummy's going to give you a winning play right now.
Of course I am. So obviously, NBA is in full swing right now, and we're not going to get any action on Wednesday because I'm not sure when I'll get to editing around this episode. So instead, I'm going to hit you with a play for Thursday afternoon. You got to play the higher than on probably everything for Wemby on Thursday. They're in Paris.
Yeah,
it's a Paris game. for the Spurs. They're playing Indiana, which, you know, like, I mean, I guess they got some centers that could offset him a little bit, but he's going to go bonkers. Play his, I'm going to say his points, rebounds, assists higher than, but like any of them individually would also work. The points is probably the most obvious. He's going to go bonkers.
Yeah, you saw him in the Olympics. He steps up when he's at home, especially. So, all right, get in on Wemby. Hopefully, he does blow up because he was my number one draft pick in fantasy this year. So, this is a different kind of fantasy, though. We're talking about underdog fantasy now. Here's the important part: take the Wemby pick and sign up with our code MMA SGPN, especially if you love these regional events that we get in your ears 3 to 5 days a week. Definitely use our code; that would help us out greatly. MMA SGPN. It's a win for you as well. You get to hear us 5 days a week. Plus, you get a special pick and first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. That's underdogfantasy.com, promo code MMA SGPN. And our friends at Rhythm are back. SGPN's proud partner. I put proud in, but they're also just a partner. Rhythm is the number one AI-powered sports betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive betting models in seconds. Build your own model, copy one of the top-performing models from the leaderboard, or have Rhythm build you a model. If the NFL playoffs haven't been going your way so far, Rhythm will help you turn things around. With 3 games left, 3 best of the season, Rhythm's AI-powered predictions for prop bets and game lines will set you up for success through the Super Bowl. Here's what you got to know, ladies and gentlemen. NFL picks, NFL props, college basketball, NBA. Rhythm has it all. Al Horford player props, damn right. I said they have it all. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. The important part, the spelling, RITHMM. All right, main event of our episode. We're already into the main card. So Hines and Currier was the opener of the main card. Now we got Santos, Verdinez versus Ethyn, Ewing, 2 American bantamweights going at it. And we have odds, which are nice. Verdinez is 6-1, 1 knockout, 3 submissions. He's never been finished in a fight. He's 4-0 in LFA. It's a 4-fight winning streak for him overall, including his last fight, which he won via submission. Is not lost since July of 2023. Used to fight at featherweight plus 190. Ewing is 6-2 with 5 knockouts. He's been submitted 1 time. 0-1 in LFA. He's won 6 straight fights. He dropped his first 2 pro fights, won 6 straight since then, including his last fight via TKO. He's not lost since March 2022. He's fight at featherweight as well. 2 inches taller than Verdinez, 4 years younger, minus 240. Not quite as wide as our last fight odds.
What's pretty funny is I had it wider when I was handicapping it.
Oh, okay.
I went through my own personal handicap. I have my numbers all written down here.
Yeah.
The Hines one at -700.
How do you handicap? Just quickly. Do you have a method to it at all?
Yeah, my method is pretty simple. It's first of all, just look at the records on the surface. Just from a number standpoint, then look at who they've fought and in what promotions they've fought. You know, the books seem to favor certain ones. And then like, also if they've continuously been on TV or, you know, like they have a big social media presence, like it does matter to the sports books, believe it or not. So like, you know, I try to factor all of that kind of stuff in. And then also like their fighting skills. Cause again, the sports books want to get the fights right. I don't know how much film they watch or how much it's definitely not as much as me, but, you know, I assume there's somebody there who can tell them a thing or two about somebody fighting. So I did all of that projection here on this fight. I had Verdinez -270. That's what I wrote down.
Yep.
And he's plus 190.
Yeah.
So this one is one I was kind of surprised. I was shocked right out the gate. I almost did like a double take when somebody told me the odds were available right before we went on. I looked down and I was like, I first saw Verdinez -190. I was like, oh, that's a good price. And then I realized there was a plus in front and I was like, oh, that's an insane price.
Yeah.
And I do think it's a close fight. You know, I thought Verdinez would be the favorite because he's coming off an absolutely disgusting finish where he like kind of got stunned in a clinch exchange and then he pulled guard and heel hooked the guy in like no time. His submission skills are insane. They're so good. And you know, like Ewing, one of his 2 losses is by submission. Worth noting. I also am, if I'm not mistaken, I think it also might be a heel hook finish, similarly to what Verdinez just finished with. But on top of that, too, like Ewing's level of competition is like kind of low. Like he fought one guy who was 4-1 one time, and you know there's a couple of 1-0 or 2-0 guys on there, but like he hasn't fought really good level of competition. And if you watch him fight, you know basically what I boil his fighting style down to is like he's good if he can back you up. If he can put you against the cage and make you fear what he's doing and then let go of combinations, he's really good. If they don't fear him and walk towards him and want to be in the clinch with him, I think he's going to struggle. And with Verdinez, why wouldn't Verdinez want to be in the clinch? Like, I've seen this guy pull guard and be successful. So, like, what would he fear being in the clinch with this guy? I don't think he will. So I think if, like, Ewing tries to just walk forward and stalk him down and beat him up that way, I think he's going to clash. I think they're going to wind up grappling. And I think that's bad news for Ewing. So I like Santos Verdinez here. I especially like him as an underdog. So give me him at the plus 190.
Awesome. Were you going to pick him to win regardless? Even when you thought it was okay.
I was. Yeah, I was.
Cool.
And also I did just look it up. It was a heel hook, but I am going to give him a slight caveat. Ewing's heel hook was to Roberto Hernandez, former Cage title challenger. So, a good opponent, but he has lost by heel hook before. Worth noting.
Worth noting. There will be props, I assume, for this, right?
They show up. You definitely get totals. I don't know that you'll necessarily get props. And if you get totals on this one, you'll probably get a pretty nice, they'll probably juice to the over. I'll take the under on this one. Yeah,
little guys. Usually they juice it to the over for sure. All right, let's recap and we'll get out of your orifices until tomorrow when we will conclude LFA 200. All right, Verdinez is a surprising dog. Hines, not so surprising favorite. Asplund, Walters, and Collins. So you got a couple of dogs here. So hopefully at least 2 dogs because you guessed Collins was going to be a dog. All right, you're set. Get in the Discord. People have been talking about all these events all week. So if you're a weirdo like that and you want to talk regional MMA 24/7, the Discord is the place to be. And everyone's nice in there, shockingly, but we don't have a toxic online environment. So check it out, sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Discord. If you're more into the toxic type stuff, we're at SGPN MMA on Twitter. He's at Gumby Relan. I'm at Jeff Fox Writer there and on Instagram. We got YouTube, a little less toxic than Twitter, obviously. MMA Gambling Podcast. Make sure you subscribe. That would help us out greatly and help our algorithm and give us some comments. Tell us how amazing we are. What else can you do? You can check out my Substack at moneymma.substack.com. You can check out Gumby's Top Turtle MMA podcast. He's got all the hiccups have been ironed out. You're going on everywhere now. Hopefully it wasn't Gumby's fault to begin with, but hopefully it's you can get it everywhere you get your podcast. Who's on it this week?
3 fighters from this card, Cheyenne Bowers and Joey Hart, who I had previously told you guys was going to be on. And then we got a surprise late edition of Stephen Asplund.
So, beautiful.
All 3 of them on this show. Big LFA show this week.
Nice. So check that out. And of course, we're at sportsgamblingpodcast.com, sportsgamblingpodcast.com/store. Big game is your code for your discounts. Get all your MMA gambling podcasts and all the other podcast swag there. And of course, sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon to get some bonus content. Back tomorrow. It will be Conqueror with a K, Jeff Fox, Concrete Vreeland. That's the use word concrete, right? Or construction at the very least, right? Concrete Vreeland. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.